Thank you, Jeff, for being here. You're a very special guest, and we know that you have a special relationship with the book that we just finished, Mayor Baba's New Life, which is credited as having been written by Bhau Kalchuri, but there's more to that story. So Jeff has asked that we ask him questions. React button, you can raise your hand to ask a question, and we'll do it that way. And I'd like to start this off by asking Jeff, um, how did this book come to be? What was your part in the process, and what was how did this book get created?
Okay, well, back in the 70s, somewhere in the mid to late 70s, Bouch was trying to get people to edit this book that he had on the New Life. It was 125 pages only. I know Charles Haynes was asked if he would edit it, and I was asked, but it was really too sketchy, and I wasn't really inspired to work with it because the thing is that the New Life, I mean, he wrote it before any of the information about the New Life had come out, except what he heard from some of the men Mondley who were on the New Life and also some of the circulars. But the thing that concerned, well, later on, it concerned me is there's nothing about the women's part in the New Life. So somehow I have no idea. I was not inclined to write it or edit it and all that. And then somehow in the 90s, I have no idea how it landed on my lap and how I said yes, because my life is so busy here. And how did I get this monster? But fortunately, I had done other books with Bhau Kalchuri, so I had the familiarity and the boldness to say, "Bow, this is just too sketchy. I mean, there's so much new material that's come out about the New Life. Let's make it as comprehensive as possible about the New Life, and draw on all the present day sources. And in that way we can, because I was most concerned there was nothing about the women's participation in the New Life, and so he actually agreed, and so then I was in trouble now because there was a lot of material because it went from being 125 pages to over 700 pages. So you can imagine what I actually volunteered for, not realizing. And at the time that I worked on it, a lot of these publications on the New Life weren't out yet. So I had to I knew a lot of these stories, but I didn't know where they took place and at what time frame. So I had to spend a lot of time guessing the timeline of this book. And, Erich couldn't remember, was that in this village or that village? And so there was a lot of sleuthing involved. But I tried to write it so that you actually went on the journey, but I didn't draw on any details that weren't there. I only drew on details that were available. And fortunately, or I don't know, fortunately, it was late in the game when the women Mondley were all pretty exhausted and the men, I didn't feel free to go up and interview them on this book. So what I would do is I would go, like, say, on Mayor's porch and I would ask kind of a leading question about the New Life. What was that like that happened there in Kuldabad or whatever? And they would just kind of spontaneously share things. And then I would go back to Mehrabad and write it all up. And actually, as a result, I would say I got about 250 extra pages on this book by just doing that. First-hand stories from the women Mondley. But even the section of the New Life written in Lord Mayhair wasn't even out yet. So I was really pretty handicapped. And plus, I don't exactly like writing. It's, it irritates me to spend all this time trying to put sentences together. I actually, even though my dad was a writer, a journalist, and everything, a very fine writer, I never liked writing. So how the heck did this happen? It's just one of those imponderables with Bob. So that's basically how it happened. And then, oddly enough, Bao, it was read aloud to Bao a couple of times, and he gave his consent. And oddly enough, I was so glad to be done with it that I didn't even put down, I don't think that I had edited the book. I just wrote an introduction, and someone said, "Who edited this book?" I don't think it's there in the book itself. But no one was going to read it because I edited it. They're going to read it because it was Bao was behind it. So, any other questions?
Did you interview the men Mondley as well?
You see, it was late in the ball game. They were pretty wiped out, and a lot of people around. I got what I could by not being intrusive. You know, I mean, I listened closely whenever the new life came up. I asked questions about it from time to time, but it had to be when there were a lot of people around. Because at this stage, people, you know, I couldn't take them aside and interview them. They were up to their neck with pilgrims, you might say.
Well, speaking of being up to one's neck, you were in the midst of all your work there at the center.
Oh, I know.
So how did you find the time?
Here's how I did it over about I don't know, maybe a 10-year period, 2.5 years of which was tracking down photographs. That was very difficult. But I would go to bed around 10 o'clock at the MPR. I would work 1 month out of the year at Mehrabad. So I would go to bed about 10, wake up at 1, and work until chai time in the morning. I don't know how I did. I was only getting a few hours sleep, but somehow Baba gave me I don't know. I thought this is going to catch up with me at some point, but it never would. The lack of sleep. So it must be the intensity of the book kind of gave me the rest at an inner level or the vitality that I needed to make it through the month and then make it through the next year.
That's great.
That's
Janet,
wonderful.
you
That's a
I
wonderful.
do have I do have a question
Yeah.
regarding the photographs. We heard a rumor that you had taken a lot of them yourself, kind of after the fact. Is that true?
No, no, I got Biff Soper, a longtime follower of Baba, to rent a taxi and go on the entire trip, up through up through to northern India and all the various places. So he was very good about doing that. No, I didn't take any of the photographs, but I got help. Oh, it was very hard getting photographs out of Hermes. He was having a problem with drinking, so you had to get him at 11 in the morning, from about 11 till 12 in the morning if you wanted to get photographs. And even that, it was like pulling teeth. And but I did. A close friend of his, Jim Roble, was an ally, and he managed to get some of these photographs because Hermes had great trust in him. So it was a lot of work of a guy named Jim Roble, and then I went to Martin and Christina Cook, and they gave me access to a number of the photographs from the New Life. But it took a long time. I never done a book before. I mean, following it through. So it was a more of a journey. I went on a journey just doing the journey of the new life, you might say. Any other questions?
Yep, Gerald.
I'm just sorry. I'm working from my smartphone and I don't know where the hand raising thing is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have found part of what prompted a lot of us in this group who are were the regulars to have you here is because we're blown away by the details of this book. Blown away. I am, and I think I'm speaking for some others of our main group. How so you talked about 125 pages that were sketchy originally, and then another 250 from the women. So that doesn't add up to 700. So can you,
Well,
my
there,
comment as
there
a background, can you talk some more about this extraordinary detailed
well, there were
voyage?
diaries here. There were diaries here and there. I was so exhausted with doing this thing that I didn't even quote sources. You know what I mean? Uh, People say, "Hey, well, where are the sources?" Well, they were real sources, but I just was not together enough to bring that. I'll let the future figure out where they came from. But, there were diaries from a guy named, uh, Vasdeo Kane in Delhi. There was diaries there. There was Kumar, some of his stories. Uh, in some of the books, there was the Tales of the New Life had come out, so there were a great many stories there. There was what was the name of the main book? The New Life circulars, that whole thing. So I drew upon everything I could, so that people could go on a journey. And I didn't embellish, or make it flowery or anything like that. But say, for example, Dr. Nilu, he had nothing to do at one phase in his new life, so he was just commenting on the weather, you know. So all the details of weather I was able to kind of incorporate into the narrative, so I wasn't making up the weather conditions. These were actual conditions that lined up with the dates. So it was like to say, I but the main thing, I kind of went on the journey myself writing it. I mean, I didn't quite know where we were going next. And then I would get to that phase of the book. Oh wow, we're up here and on the way to Dehradun, at this railway station, and now, oh wow, where are we going next? So it was a kind of unfolding before me as I was gathering the material. I didn't just gather the material and then rewrite it. I kind of went on the journey. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Byers.
Yep, go ahead. William?
Okay, I'm here. Jeff, a fair number of Christians like to say that Jesus was fully divine and fully human. And I like to say that as well about Baba. But I wanted to ask you what you think the New Life did to that formula as it applies to Baba.
Yeah, very good. Very good question. Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I started working on this, you may be familiar with Ramakrishna Paramahansa in the latter part of the 1800s. Now, after realization, he took adopted the Christian path, he adopted the Hindu path, the Islam, the, the all the various paths. And I felt what he was doing is that these paths, these religious paths, had gotten so overgrown by vines and shrubs and everything that he cut a swath through from here to the divine through these through these religious paths. And what I felt Baba was doing is he made it actually universal. He went from, he put his divinity on cold storage and became a person. He gave up his knowledge, he gave up his power, and just lived the life of an ordinary seeker and lover of God. And he started from down here and made his way all the way through to the divine. And it's not just religious, but it's also secular for those who are atheists, for those who are agnostic. He opened up a universal path from here to the divine, and he it's a very wide path, and far more than Ramakrishna could do, I would say. And so I felt that's what he's done. We are face to face with the divine. He has removed a lot of the veils between us and the divine. But Bob was not emphasizing God in human form in the new life. This is my feeling. He was emphasizing that the divine presence, following the divine presence, but not necessarily the human presence of the divine, as in Jesus or Bob or Muhammad or Krishna. So that is, my own path is, even though I felt immediately when Baba appeared to me back in the 60s, and I recognized him instantly as God, I was most drawn to not the divine side of Baba, but his human side, his personality. So that was what I was drawn to. And to get his companionship, fill in all the colors of what he was like being a man, because when I heard of Bobby, he was still on Earth, so there was a remote chance we might see him. So that is, different in my own personal experience of the new life, because I feel the new life was a path more the divine path, the path to the divine, and it doesn't preclude God in human form, but Baba was not emphasizing that. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't know what you folks thought. But I like to say, I was most attracted to Baba, the man, his sense of humor, his intimacy, and I felt him with me,
Thank you,
all
Jeff.
along. What's
Yeah,
that?
I just wanted to thank you. Yeah, that helps.
Also from Denver here.
Hey, hello, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, we had such wonderful meetings reading this book and having discussions about it. It was just absolutely fabulous. And the last couple of meetings that we had, we discussed the epilogue and the supplement, and got into the topic of, well, how does one follow the new life now? What is this? All of these rules and regulations, we couldn't keep up with it. It was like something that was written for a lawyer. But those
Yeah.
last two sections were so fantastic. And I was kind of curious. I thought, well, gee, now that you mentioned that Bau's original draft was only 125 pages, were those last two sections, the epilogue and the supplement, were those part of that original 125-page draft, or were those something that was added kind of at the end of your process?
Oddly enough, it's interesting. I've forgotten about that, but he and I worked on these things back in the 70s.
Ah, okay.
He would talk about these different aspects of the new life, and this wasn't what this other book in mind, but he, like helplessness and hopelessness and living in the world, all those things I went over with him, not with an idea of a future book, but those were aspects of the new life, and what I felt was valuable is, even though he didn't go on the new life, this is the interpretation of a Mandali member of this phase of Baba's life, as opposed to mine. You're getting, and Bao used to say that the Mandali went on a new life, but they were always living the new life. You know what I mean? This was done for the world. They were living this basically. The externals were different, but they had to live that same dedicated moment to moment obedience to Baba, to the best of their ability. But yeah, those were done, I would say, in the late 70s there
Oh,
in the trust compound. Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much. So it's kind of a separate thing, and then they were added to the book later on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Good.
Wonderful.
I had forgotten that. Yeah.
But there were so many great stories in there, even in the supplement. I mean, when Bhau mentioned that story about the young man, Baba sent Alaba out in the rain. Who's out there? And the young man who wanted to join, who wanted to stay with Baba, and Baba sent him away. No, I'll call you in 3 weeks. I don't remember this. I mean that the story is in Lord Mahir as well, and it just there were so many things in the whole book that just struck me. But in that supplement, in that story, when Baba told that young man to treat everything as though he were the caretaker, that just
Yeah.
went straight. I mean, that made so much both heart sense and head sense as a way to try to get some sense or maybe live a version of the new life in some way or other. That was a powerful one.
Yeah. Yeah. Erich I used to say this in Mandalay Hall, and there didn't seem to be many caretakers. Um, what can I say? Takers. But he would say that, you know, become a caretaker for the world. This whole world is yours, but you have to claim it. Through love, you bring what's outside of you inside, and you have to look after everything. That doesn't mean that you're in there micromanaging everything,
Yeah.
but luckily we only have to take care of one little scene at a time, you know. But someone would say, "Well, who am I to be a caretaker for the world?" And Erich would say, he would turn it around. Who are you not to be a caretaker for the world? It's not. It's seen. Yeah, I mean, I think someone said, "Isn't it presumptuous to think that I should care for this world?" And he would say, "Brother, it is presumptuous not to think you're a caretaker of this world." But there's no, you might be taking care of it. We can be in the same room caring for what's in that room. It's not like there's no bailiwick, it's all, and then the world becomes yours. You belong in every situation. It's not like, I mean, if I come into a room and people don't want me around, I'm still there to look after this situation. So I belong in every situation, even if the people in it don't want me to belong. I don't know if that makes sense. So in that way, you belong in the world everywhere. That's the kind of the reward of that approach. Rather than I'm just looking after my stuff and Bob, you look after your stuff.
Yeah.
That's the typical normal way of viewing things. But it expands your life. Oh,
Thank
let's
you.
go for Peter here. Were you raising your hand, Peter? Then we'll
Yes.
get back to you, Will. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like your definition of the word mononash, because to me, when Baba said the mind will be annihilated, that to me would mean that you don't have any memory, you can't relate to anything of the past, you don't know that you have a human body. What does mononash mean to you after all these years of mulling it over and trying to figure out why would he use that word, which seems so irrevocable and so highly defined and complete? And then at the end, he leaves it so open to, well, this is God's work. And if it'll happen in a month, it'll happen in a month. If it'll happen in a year, it'll happen in a year. If it'll happen in 1,000 years, it'll happen in 1,000 years. So at the end, there doesn't seem to be that same definition, doesn't seem to be that same intent. What does that mean to you, Mononash?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the end, the terminus at the end,
Yes.
where you shed the lower mind and you really inherit the universal mind.
Yes.
So it's not about the mind should stay very practical and very practical and useful in everything. But eventually, your tentacles of being identified with the mind, you withdraw into the soul itself.
Yes.
And the soul is capable of doing everything that our mind can do and more.
Yeah.
You know. So it's getting rid of the lower mind and inheriting, you might say, the higher mind or the soul.
Yeah.
And the state of no mind is actually more versatile, you might say, than this thing that we got down here.
Yes.
Uh,
And yet, though, the
what?
mind is not annihilated. That's the problem I have with that word, annihilation, because Baba used his mind for the rest of his life. He still got angry. He still got upset. It wasn't annihilated. Why do they have to use that word annihilation? That bothers me.
Yeah, good. Let me ponder this a second. um, let me see. Um, it's the identification of the mind that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
In other words, Baba, he got sick, he got cold, he got older, his body, but you could say, well, but the thing is, he's behind the body, you might say.
Yeah.
It's you can still be in the body and not identified with it, if you could imagine. See, we're identified with the mind, and so uh, we think, well, how can you be without a mind? You can be without a mind and still do function perfectly well in this world. I mean, Darwin Shaw,
Yeah.
you become a witness and you watch yourself perform these things,
No,
and
I
you're
agree
no,
with all of that. That's
yeah,
perfectly sensible. I've been a meditator for 40 years. I'm a serious, quiet, no mind type of dude.
yeah,
But it's just the terminology.
yeah,
It scares people. I have a
yeah,
lot of people who are borderline spiritual people. And if I mention anything about the new life and this annihilation of mind, they turn off completely. They don't
yeah,
want to hear it. And
yeah.
yet,
That
it's
I
exactly
would
what they need.
I would change that wording or find a way to,
Yeah.
find their language. But Baba talks about Satchanashi, utter ruination.
Yes.
That's not going to be appealing to anybody. But your lower self is being annihilated,
Yes.
so that
The
your higher,
selfish part. The selfish part.
yeah, even yeah,
The me first part is annihilated. I
yeah,
can understand that, but in total, there's so many parts of a human mind that we don't even know about. And to say that it's annihilated, that's just not so. It doesn't add up.
yeah. I remember reading where Baba said he would, or maybe Erich told it, where Baba was giving darshan at one point, and he said to one of the mandali, one of these people could come up as a man and walk away as God, and you wouldn't know it.
That's great.
You know. So anyway, let's see what Will has to say. Good question there. Yeah,
Well, I was just thinking uh, the whole thing of hopelessness and helplessness is not really a big seller
yeah,
to our world either. If if you're trying to get someone to Baba and say all you have to do is be helpless and hopeless, uh, that's not too popular idea.
that's not a big selling point. Yeah,
Yeah, but that's not my question. I one of the most touching one of the most touching stories in the book was about Dalla Singh
yeah,
and him crying. His daughter basically said, "You're no longer my father," because he went on the new life, and she was having a wedding come up in a few days, and she didn't
yeah,
understand that. So the I mean, it almost feels like Dalat Singh is an archetype for me, for understanding that you're feeling connected to the world. You're feeling connected to things that are really important, for instance, family. And it takes you away from Baba's presence, but not really. He's kind of serving, in my mind, he's being the servant that is sent away and yet fulfills Baba's will perfectly by doing what Baba's asking him to do, which is to be a householder, to beg once a month, and all of this stuff that Baba asked him to do didn't make him popular either. I mean, the family rejected him.
I
His
know
village
that's the
rejected
ironic
him.
thing.
Yes.
You-
So, um, I don't know. Were there others that you remember that were actually sent away? I know Baba, he seemed to keep feeling like he had failed because he saw people not fulfilling their part of it, and yet he wasn't sending them away. I just wonder if, in your memory, if there was anybody else other than Dalit Singh that was sent away.
Hmm. I know. I worked on this thing about whatever 30 years ago. Let's see. I haven't read it since.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can't
does anybody
remember.
else recall anyone being sent away? I mean, they went by choice. Dr. Ghani went back. Adi was just, he said he
Yeah,
just couldn't,
yeah,
he couldn't
by
make
choice.
common sense of this. It was, I mean, they would be, for example, they would be traveling through villages or towns in India, and they would be cold and freezing and everything. And just down the street was a long time Bob, a lover who could have put them up and helped them out, but they didn't contact them. I mean, it was like, what? I mean, this just aggravated Audie no end. I
Yeah,
mean, it's so contrived, the contrivedness of it. But Baba was aiming at these inner conditions,
yeah,
the helplessness and the having to face mental and physical discomfort. I mean, even Monty used to complain that it was so cold that their fingernails turned blue. Now, I've been in a lot of cold places. I've never had that experience. But a lot of her recollection of it was just being cold, a good bit of the time, freezing cold.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, did James get down from power the power towers and show up, huh?
Well, actually, I'm a telephone, but
Was yeah, up there. Yeah.
I actually don't climb poles anymore. But that's it's been busy. I just, we're still restoring things from the storm. I mean, today I
Yeah.
just got a cabinet of electronics working that's been down since the storm.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, good to see you.
good to see you too.
Any other questions? One of the things, I don't know if you folks can relate to it, but even though we haven't gone on a new life, a lot of the things that the aims of the new life, Baba has accomplished in us, just in our daily life and everything. I mean, most of us, I'm sure, are not that attached to things in the world after all these years. I mean,
Definitely true.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I even, decades back, I'd cash my paycheck. I could do anything I wanted with it, and I'd walk out of the center there, and what did I want? Maybe go over to Books A Million, see if there's a book I feel like reading. There was nothing externally that I was really interested in. I didn't need a new car or a new house. I mean, any place to stay. So a lot of my life, and I'm sure you found that, becomes internal. And the externals, it's nice to have it, practically set up. But, you know, nothing on the external, if the things the external are not there, it doesn't diminish your inner life. You know, if your car is, just barely making it by, you don't feel like you're less of a person than if you get out there and identify with cars or your house. And so I feel that particular aspect. And I would say what Baba has done, and I'm sure he's done in you, is to get you more and more in the present. So you're not thinking in terms of the future or the past, or, I mean, for me, Baba has, I would say, we're talking, say moods. Baba has given me over time, a great tolerance for mental discomfort. And so, and being able to not let my mental discomfort affect my mood, my spirit, And so being able to tolerate mental discomfort of it extreme and stay here. And I mean, what gets us in time is I don't like it here. I want to go in a past time or a future time, or I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. A lot of that Baba has worked out over time so that I can hang in the present, which is one of the thing aims of the new life was to stay in the active present. And I would say we get more and more able to do that so that we're not having to leave. And it's in the present that we will see Baba or God face to face. It's not in the future or the past. Yeah. We got Greg there.
Um, so I was quite interested in your comment just now about managing the mental discomfort and not having it take you out of situations. And so I wanted to see if maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit. If you can give some examples without getting anything that's uncomfortably personal, but anyway, I'd enjoy hearing more about that.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. I know. I remember back in my college days, my buddies would get into drugs or alcohol and everything. I was feeling miserable myself, but I would rather have my consciousness intact and feel miserable than to try to escape it. That was kind of and because by staying in the present, I mean, I'm diverging a little bit. You're in wholeness. Even if you're miserable, you're in wholeness. But once you want to go somewhere, uh, to catapult out of this moment, then now you're in the partial world. I'm here, but I want to be there. So eventually I got a taste for wholeness. I would rather be in wholeness and in pain than uh, going somewhere where I'm going to feel better, but not really facing the profound discomfort in myself. So now, how to build up the tolerance? That Baba has a way of dealing you a lot of hands with no face cards. Sometimes a lot of humiliate. The Mandala used to say they all had kind of the same adjectives in describing life with Baba: humiliation, frustration, and uh, humiliation, frustration, and exhaustion. And to be able to hang in those things without being tempted to escape. I mean, it's irritating, but I mean that in a way, that's what Baba had them do. Had to stay in these states and remain cheerful. They had to become lord and masters of their face. And of course, working at the center, or if you're a waiter or a waitress, the customer's always right. You know what I mean? You, you, I mean, it does. I mean, if as a waitress or waiter you're in a bad mood, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Plus, you're not helping the restaurant and all that. So it's good practice, to have to rise above. Now, I'll tell you, here's a thing that Mara helped me immensely on this. I don't know if I'm off the track here, but this was a turning point in my life as far as moods. Back in the mid 70s, Mara was saying goodbye, was on her porch of the main house saying goodbye to this lady who was going back to the West because she just finished her pilgrimage. And I was just there saying goodbye for the day. I was going back to Mehrabad. And Mara was saying, take Baba with you, take his name, devote your life to Baba, he'll be with you. She's talking along those lines. And then Mara says, sometimes we feel empty and depressed, but we know Baba wants us to be happy, so we make efforts to be cheerful. I mean, Baba wants us to be cheerful, so we make efforts to be cheerful. Now, I'm a young kid there. This is back in the 70s. I'm thinking, this is the most loving person I've ever been around. She was next to the source. She was the beloved of the beloved, next to the source of all love. And she sometimes feels depressed and empty. And I thought in my mind, love must be something different from what I thought. Because I felt, I would be feeling Baba in a joyous heart and everything in the morning, and then afternoon, if I lost it, I would be desperate. What did I do? I must have done something wrong. I was getting knocked from ocean to shore, back and forth. But when Mara said that, I realized that our moods are on a different track from love. Love is on a different track altogether. Our moods are like the seasons. You're in springtime, you want the mood to be in springtime, but then it has to move to summer where things dry out in the scorching sun. But then it comes to fall and things are cooler and invigorated, and then you hit winter and everything dies down. The cycle of the mood, I realized from Mara, the cycle of the moods have to go on. You can't stay in springtime. But love is on a different track altogether. And that helped me, in controlling moods, not to take them as essentially myself. The love is to tap into the love beyond it. I don't know if that makes, and
Well,
that's part of, oh, go ahead.
well, there's another dimension to this that, what you're saying reminds me of, which is this idea of the enjoyment of suffering. I've had a couple of conversations with Ward about that. He considers that a very key, what should I say, maybe very key to advancement in the spiritual life. And if I'm not mistaken, that was also, I think that's part of the Song of the New Life. And it was an idea, wasn't it, that Baba introduced during the New Life? I can't remember the context, but that's a whole nother level of sort of.
Yeah. Enjoyment of suffering.
And that could be another bullet point in our Baba sales presentation that we're identifying things tonight, like along with annihilation of the mind and those other things we missed.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think, do I actually enjoy suffering? I'm trying to think. I can tolerate it, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And I realize that we're all addicted to the bottle of self-preoccupation. And getting over any addiction is painful. But the little freedom you get from your alcoholic addiction or your self-centeredness gives you a little measure of freedom. So that compensates what the suffering you have to go through. In other words, I find that suffering that I've been through has actually given me a certain measure of inner freedom. Things that I might have been fearful about and I've gone through, then they're not as terrifying to me anymore. I got a little inner freedom from that particular experience. Do you know what I mean? So there's an enjoyment of suffering in the sense of as you see yourself getting free from uh, certain things that have a hold on you that you haven't let go of. Does that
Um, I don't know how to answer that, but I just remembered one more thing that Ward said about it, which I thought was really interesting. He said that, and I can't remember where he got this from. He didn't make it up. It was something that Baba said, but he said that uh, joy and suffering were the expressions in the gross sphere of divine bliss.
Yeah.
And the divine attributes of infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. What's the other one? Infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. What's the third? Anyway, that when they
Power. Yeah.
yeah. When they descend into the gross sphere, they by the nature of the gross sphere have a dual expression. And so if that's the case, then I don't know, somehow being able to see your suffering in the moment that it's happening as, one aspect of the expression of divine bliss, maybe it gets you closer being able to do that. I don't know. I'm getting out
Yeah.
of my.
Well, I found like when I went my first couple of Baba meetings up there with Darwin and Gene Shaw, I found myself in such a state of bliss. I never wanted it to end. Unbelievable bliss. I mean, it was new to me. And the next day, I had to work in this nursing home, in the infirmary part of a nursing home. So I just kind of crashed land. So after two sessions of that, I said, I'm never going up again. I'm just going to settle for just simple, everyday being happy. And what I found is that when you bring, what Ward says, when you bring bliss down to well, I found when I was in a state of bliss, I could not empathize with others. And I didn't like that. If someone came and their mother had just passed on, I'm just in a state of bliss. I can't get there. So I did not like that. I never wanted to go up into bliss. But joy is down here at the street level, I found, or simple being happy. And it enables me to enter into the lives of others, to feel what they're feeling. So there's a reason not to go up into those places. But suffering, if you never suffer, how are you going to understand why this person is going through this? If you hadn't gotten into drugs, how, I mean, I'm not saying I didn't, but you look at, well, what is that guy doing getting into drugs? But if you have been into drugs, you know why. So all of our shortcomings, and I've found my weaknesses, shortcomings, and hangups and pretensions, Bob has turned those into empathy for others. There's a Zen saying, fish cannot live in pure water. There's got to be some muck on the bottom of the lake to feed off of. So suffering is our link to others, and joy is our link to others as well. That's just my own experience.
That's brilliant, man. Brilliant.
That's
Keep on.
Bob, did you have a question, Bob?
No, I just have one very brief quote that I was actually talking to a friend this morning and about a Rumi poem on suffering, and I sent her. I found a quote, and it's relevant, so I want to share it.
Yeah.
They let's see. Duncan was instructed to return to London with the Mabel expired 5 months later. 25 October, Sam Cohn was sent to Mexico. The people went here and there. 3 days later, Jean and Malcolm Schloss left. While leaving, Jean wept and said to Baba, "Thank you for all the joy and pain in my life I have had while with you." Baba replied, "Thank me." Baba replied, "Thank me only for the pain." Jean understood what Baba meant. Only while suffering do we grow in love. and through pain overcome our weaknesses and ego. So
That I know that that is such a outstanding passage, and a great many Baba lovers don't know that exact passage. You know, Baba. Now, there's a beautiful line here that I like, where Baba. I mean, it's a Sufi line where the this mystic says, Sufi mystic says, as long as I feel you right here with me, how can I say I'm suffering? So, yeah, as long as I feel you right here with me, how can I say I'm suffering? And so, if you feel Baba with you and Mara with you, um, even if I'm in a lot of pain and everything, like what a great privilege that they are here with me. You know, it's just it gets to be like that. That if they're here, you can endure almost anything. Uh, if you're with your beloved, and like I say, we're all addicted to the bottle of self-preoccupation. And how does Baba get us to move out of such a uh, the tentacles of our awareness so riveted to this personality self? I remember Darwin, after meeting one time, said to me just very casually, Jeff, you are not the personality self. I was a young kid. This isn't me. I thought the whole purpose was to get to know me and to go on and improve me until I reached the goal. And Darwin's basically saying I'm barking up the wrong tree. But he used to say the personality self is just a storefront for the soul. And we make such a big a deal of the window displays and we change them with the seasons when we could go inside and enjoy the priceless merchandise. But it's very hard to get some space between our personality self and our consciousness, to get some, so that we are not that storefront. We know we're behind it. We're the soul behind it. And I mean, a lot of the new life is a whole journey into getting some detachment from all of this. Baba comes at it from so many different ways to get us to kind of disengage from being so enmeshed in this lower self. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
One of the couplets from the New Life, the song of the New Life, is the questions of disciple master, our godhood, no longer arise. Brotherliness, our fellow feeling, is the link that exists.
Yeah.
I've always been intrigued with that. What do you have any comments about that? Brotherliness is the feeling. Brotherliness or fellow feeling is the link that exists.
Yeah. I mean, Baba, in his last message on the alphabet board, says, you will realize, he's speaking, this is his last message, you will realize the truth by being bound to each other with internal links. Now, he's not talking about just our internal link with him, but with each other. And because the link with each other is Baba in each other, and the other Baba in me. There's Baba in me. I generally associate that more with the masculine, and the feminine is Baba in each other. And Baba, you can't just get there through one way or another. You have to, both of those have to be developed in ourselves. So brotherliness is the link, because I feel for this age, in the age of my, oh, excuse me, oh darn, something happened to my thing here. Anyway, it went dark. Oh, I got it. In the time of Buddha, because of that, the society needs there, Buddha recommended kind of stepping away from society a little bit and meditating. In this Advent, Baba said to Helen Dom up there on the hill, the lady that did the murals inside, the path is through people. So he is indicating that our link with each other is especially important in this Advent, rather than just going solely for God within or Baba within. So brotherlyhood, sisterlyhood is the link. It's much more important in this Advent. Baba, this my feeling is, as a Buddha, as Muhammad, they stress the impersonal aspect of God, and in Judaism, Jehovah, and in this Advent, Baba came as emphasizing God as a person, God in human form. And I think that's to bring the personal back into this world that's getting increasingly more impersonal. And we are, if you look at the society today, I mean, how can you compete with somebody's Google uh, search? But anyway, I think it's very, the brotherliness is the link. And sisterlyhood is the link. It's much more valuable in this Advent, I would say, than in other Advents.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you, Jeff. Man, brilliant, wonderful, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Fabulous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I say, I'm just rattling away here.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions for Jeff? We normally end at 7:30, but as long as we got Jeff on the line, we could just keep him.
Well, I
he
mean,
likes suffering, right? He likes suffering, so they just make him
That's
suffer
right.
more.
yeah, my bedtime was 3 hours ago, and you guys got me just. Let's see. Oh, here's one thing that you might find. I mean, this is written into the New Life, and it's a viewpoint that, one time back in the 70s, we were there with Erich in Mandalay Hall, and the subject had been the higher self and the lower self. And the discussion had gone on for about an hour, and I'm kind of sitting there leaning against the wall, and this kind of pops out of me. I said, Erich, I have a feeling that we've divided the lower self into a higher and a lower. And the lower self, we're trying to realize the higher self, the higher self. What we're thinking, but well, what did I say? I said, what we think is the spiritual, thinking, God, how can I say it? The spiritual side of life is just really the higher side of the lower self, and that the higher self is something altogether different. And he shot a look at me, like, what? That idiot, where'd that come from? But what I mean is the whole spiritual path, which Baba discourages in the new life, the conscious spiritual life, is just the higher side of the lower self. That's why Baba discourages us from getting addicted to spiritual experience. When Rick Chapman met Baba there in '66 in Mandalay Hall, one of the things that Baba said is forget about spirituality, forget about the planes of consciousness, forget about spiritual experience. And Rick said, kind of paraphrasing, he said, in that moment, Baba relieved me of thousands of miles of travel on the spiritual highway up through the plains to realization. And what I kind of picture is at the beginning of this freeway, there's a little side road that goes down, a Pimple Road, and then you link up with this little approach road. And at the end of that approach road is the Sufi Tavern, where everybody's trying to be effaced rather than realizing their spiritual potential. They are emptying the premises so that Baba will live their life. Darwin used to say, sooner or later, you discover you're nobody. And that is not an unhappy discovery. So both of them are valid. To realize your spiritual potential is valid, but also to empty the premises and let Baba live your life. And that is not that's not the spiritual path. That's letting go, even of the spiritual side of things. So that's integral to the new life, is not seeking spiritual experience.
Jeff, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Oh, now we have a question there from Patty.
Oh, yeah.
You have to unmute. There you go.
You said about finding spirituality and finding it in each other. Our times are giving us plenty of opportunity with these disasters and these horrible things happening in the world, that we need to band together and help each other.
Yeah.
We've had that here in Asheville for sure. And our society's getting more and more divided all the time, but the opportunity is really presenting itself in manifold ways.
I agree. It's going to be a challenge to find Baba in some of these others that are kind of on the other side of the polarity. But we have to do that. I mean, there's a line from Sri Aurobindo, the sixth plane master, Baba said, you have to be able to look at the hideous face of God and not turn away. You have to kind of stay in there. Like Ramana Maharshi, he was also a sixth plane saint. He was asked, what should our relationship be to others? I don't know if you've heard of her, but he was like a real holy man in the classic sense. But they asked him, what should our relationship be with others? And he said, there are no others. So that is the incredible challenge. Everybody is Baba in disguise, but to see through that disguise is not easy. It takes love to see through the disguise, not any mental gymnastics. Loving those whom you cannot love, as Baba said. Yeah.
Sounds simple.
What's that?
Sounds simple.
Yeah, on paper, it's really, I can, a couple of sentences. Yeah. But here, I'll just mention this. When I started working at the center, this is back in the 70s, I thought Baba would draw the cream of the crop of humanity here. But I found out very quickly that it was a cross-section of humanity, from scoundrel to saint, from miser to philanthropist, from the whole spectrum. And in fact, Erich used to say, you're in the court of the avatar, because the whole variety of people are represented. So I realized I'm going to have to lower my expectation of others. And I spent 20 years, and I'm kind of very disciplined person on these things. I spent 20 years lowering and lowering and lowering and people could get away with almost everything. I could still hang in there with them. And what happened, I wasn't expecting this, but after 20 years, the critical faculty, being critical of others, that kind of shrunk. I wasn't intending that, but in trying to lower the expectations, that criticalness or that judgmentalness got lowered, and so people actually wound up giving me the best of themselves. I mean, most everybody. In other words, the heart will go out, and if it suspects that there's some criticalness up there, it's only going to go out so far. But if there isn't any criticalness, their heart can go out, and they'll give you the best of themselves. So there's every reason to link up with, and that links you up with the Baba. They're giving you the Baba side of themselves, because when their heart is not, when it feels safe, you're usually going to get the best from people. So that's part of that brotherliness is the link. So you guys are probably way up past your bedtime. I mean, this looks like a nursing home crowd here. I mean, if I could pass out a 6-pack of Geritol to you folks.
Yeah, see, this is the real self. Now, we've been waiting suffering 80 minutes of this discourse, and now we get the real message.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll see you in a month, man.
Yeah. Hey, I think Bob's got his hand raised there. Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you so much, Jeff. This has been so valuable. And one quick note, my son Matt said, say hello to Jeff for me. So
good.
Jeff for my Matt.
I tried to get Matt to work at the center because he was such a sterling kid,
He's a great guy.
But there's more things in Colorado too. I mean, Myrtle Beach is the backwater of culture in this country.
A lot of restaurants, though. 727 restaurants.
Oh, really? Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
And about 150 golf courses.
Golf courses, yeah.
Yeah. 55 miles of strip mall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Ellie, it was great to see you. Great to see you, Susan, Ken, and Donna. He's up in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Will, let's see. William, no medical advice from him. Elaine Cox never got out of the dark there. If she'd pay her electric bill once in a while, we'd see her. Greg, nice to see you. Corinne's great help to a lot of people here who are getting sick every other day. Cheryl, nice to see you. Janet, she's never could get up on the screen, and James and Patty. Oh, hey, can you take out your guitar real quick and play that song? You got to hear this song. I don't know if you've heard this, but it's well worth hearing this song. Put yourself on what do you call it? Original sound.
Everybody's heard it.
Oh, everybody's heard it. Okay.
Well, maybe not everybody.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, good.
I haven't heard it.
Okay.
Get us in the
What song is it? I don't know it.
Well, wait a second. You gotta.
It's a rewrite.
It's a rewrite. We haven't sang it in months, so I'm not sure if we're gonna remember all the words.
Okay. Yeah.
Driving on the road
for hours and hours, and then I'll find out which cabin that you picked out just for me, only for me. We've come to you now, and met some lovers in the kitchen. Everything is good. Such a cozy room. Center is illuminated by the loving grace that shines like fiery gems from you. Only from you. Your house is a very, very, very fine house with a lake out past the yard, and the ocean isn't far, and everything is easy 'cause of you. Hey, ba 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 Your house is a very, very, very fine house with a lake out past the yard. And then there is the bar, and everything is easy 'cause of you. Hey, I'll park the car and we'll go in the gateway and return our pink key.
That's a wonderful benediction.
Wow, I'm out of tune so much though.
Yep. Everybody unmute and say thank you to Jeff and to James and Patty.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Good to see you.
Yeah, what a fabulous song, you guys.
Hey, Bhau.
Thank you,
Good
Jeff.
souls,
More
yay.
hearts and balloons, Ken.
That was so
Thanks
sweet.
for all that great,
Yeah, that's
hard work
great.
on the book, Jeff.
Great song. I was literally just burning a copy of the original.
Jeff, you have to unmute yourself, Jeff.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Jeff.
Really. Thanks for this. I hadn't really thought about the new life too much, but your questions kind of activated it all for me.
No, you're living it, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, no, Baba, I do feel like we're all moving in this, but we're not on the road somewhere starving and freezing, but
Right.
the same thing is getting accomplished in us, I really feel.
That's right.
You know, yeah, a lot of the outer stuff is not so attractive, and we got a little more control of our moods and linking up with each other. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Anyway, see you guys.
Wonderful comments, wonderful food for thought and inspiration. Yep, that was just great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank
No.
you.
Okay, Bob.
Hey, Baba.
Hey, Bhau.
Hurry up and get back to the center, all of you.
Yes. Amen.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
Chris.
You bet.
Thank you, Chris.
Good
Yeah.
to see you.
See it, so that'd be wonderful.
And I think it's valuable stuff because Jeff has such incredible insights into the new life after working on that book and working at the center for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was great.
That sure was. It sure was.
And one final thanks to Cheryl for I think you were the one who suggested that we do this. So that really worked out wonderfully.
Yeah, it did. I'm so happy. I mean, this is fabulous. And I'm so grateful also that you recorded it, however we get to see it.
Yeah.
You know,